Alrighty, everybody. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the first 2 episodes, probably some of the biggest surprises I've ever seen because I had zero expectation for this show. In fact, I had less than zero expectation for the show. I've made segments in the past talking about the trailers, talking about the show in general. And look, I'm willing to give anything a chance, but I watched the show, or I watched the trailers rather, and I was like, what is this? What's the point of this? It doesn't look like it's really much of anything. And, that is what it is, right? It's all right to not like trailers and stuff like that. But I always go into these shows and go into these movies with an open mind because that is exactly the best way, I think, to make the most out of your viewing experiences, I think one of the better experiences when watching movies and shows is to really not be excited by something and then end up really liking it. And your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the first 2 episodes, it was exactly that. I really liked them. So I went into the next week, which is now this week, and I was like, okay, let's see what we got here. And little did I know, I must have seen the release schedule. I know they released it in some Instagram post or something like that, but they released 3 episodes this week. So I had a little bit of watching to do. It's like 30 minutes each episode, which is like 22 minutes-ish. It's like a sitcom-length episode of every single episode. So it's almost an hour and a half of TV, which is fun. And yeah, here we are. We're going to talk about the first 3 episodes, episodes 3 through 5, rather, of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. This is going to be a full spoiler discussion, so if you have not seen Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, just make sure to come back later, and we will be discussing them. I'm not going to go as in-depth, because again, I don't think this is, it's not as big of a show as Skeleton Crew or The Penguin or anything like that, so we're not going to go as in-depth on these episodes as we do with those spoiler discussions, but I still want to hit and highlight some of the better moments and some things that I really enjoyed from these 3 episodes 3, 4, and 5. So let's get into it, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Episode 3, we start out here, and yeah, the end of episode 2, I kind of predicted it. I kind of thought so while we were watching episode 2. I was like, Norman Osborn's going to figure out who Peter Parker is, and sure enough, that's how episode 2 ended. And so we get an interesting dynamic here between Peter and Norman. And it's interesting because Norman, played by the amazing Coleman Domingo, who is nominated rather for an Oscar for his performance in Sing Sing. He's incredible. He's great. He plays Norman really well in this voice acting role. He's scary, but he's also kind of inviting, which is different. It's different than the relationship between Tony and Peter, even Quentin Beck and Peter in Spider-Man: Far From Home. I think Quentin was genuinely, or not genuinely, but trying to play genuine nice up until the very moment he betrays Peter. So I think that this is different because I think there is a layer of cynicism or a layer of seriousness and I wouldn't say evil. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I suspect at this point in the show that Norman Osborn is already up to some very nefarious things. So it's not like I don't think he's going to make a big turn later on in the series and then he's going to become Green Goblin. I'm not saying he's Green Goblin right now. I just think that, as Norman Osborn, he's up to some shady things. But yeah, he plays scary but inviting really well. He actually kind of gives big Vulture vibes. Vulture is like, hey, look, you saved my daughter and I'm never going to forget that. So you walk away, otherwise I'm going to kill you. And it's kind of that kind of vibe, and so yeah, Peter did save Harry, and so it's really listen, I want to pay you back. I want to do whatever I can to help you, which is, I think, yeah, it makes sense. So again, it's interesting. The question is, what's in it for Norman, other than the fact that he saved his son, and it doesn't seem like he cares for Harry all too much. There's a quick a line of dialogue, quick blink and you'll miss it line, where towards, I think it's episode 5, at the end of episode 5, he's like, Harry here is 15, and Harry's like, I'm 16. So it kind of shows you Norman is not the most caring father, right? And he's treating Peter pretty well, but it brings up the question of what is it or what's in it for Norman. And I think that's what will be kind of the big talking point throughout the entire show, is that I think at the end of the show we'll get the villain reveal, and then we'll see where he goes from here. So anyways, Peter's like, yeah, I don't know if I can do this anymore. My identity's been revealed and I don't want to be at Oscorp because it's my identity's compromised. And Norman's like, okay, but how about a lot of money? And look, it's not a trivial thing, right? The Peter Parker that's being portrayed here and in most iterations of the comic books is not well off, and money talks, and especially seeing later on May is clearing up a bunch of Uncle Ben stuff, and poor Aunt May, right? This is, I guess Uncle Ben must have died right before the start of the show, and so it must be really hard, and yeah, again, all the little scenes in this show, nothing feels wasted, which I really like. Nothing feels like a scene just for the sake of a scene. Everything feels intentional. I think that's a really good sign of a good show. Anyways, Peter is now at Oscorp, and he's decided to stay, and things are going well for Peter and Lonnie. Lonnie Lonnie, he's a compelling character as well. And there are moments, right, where you are rooting for Lonnie, but then you're kind of like, but you know that something bad is about to happen. And the poor guy, I mean, he just can't catch a break throughout this series so far, where even at lunch, he's like, hey, Peter and Pearl, I'll buy you guys lunch. And then he realizes that he doesn't have enough money for it. And so it's just, he's a tragic character. And obviously towards the end of it, he's starting to embrace his villain role, but I just feel bad for him because he's a likable character. At the beginning, you were kind of like, uh-oh, here we go. Jock character who's trying to take away Peter's girlfriend kind of deal, because it seemed like at least that they were going down that road of Peter and Pearl kind of being the Peter and Liz from Spider-Man Homecoming. But it seems like, well, maybe they're going a different route here because Lonnie is a genuinely good guy. He's a great person who is just in the wrong set of circumstances. And I'm really impressed with how the show is taking time to flesh out Lonnie. I think it's going to be, such a tragic fall from grace once he actually starts to break out as the villain. And the tragedy begins in episode 3 where he joins that group, the 100 and something gang, and he takes the place of his brother, which is, it's really sad here. And so anyways, at the end of the show, also there are 2 random criminals with some tech that I guess later is revealed to be from Otto Octavius, we think. And, the action's pretty good. I don't know who these criminals are. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, at the end of the episode as well, there's a quick scene of Norman seemingly monitoring the whole thing. So it seems like he is sanctioning all this, although it also seems like later Otto Octavius is not aware or not in league with Norman. So it's interesting. At the end of this episode, Lonnie and Spider-Man both kind of headed down shady paths. Lonnie with the gang and Spider-Man with Norman Osborn. So we'll see where that goes from there. Episode 4. The professor. It starts out at the lab again in Oscorp. The professor is just cruel. That guy was just yelling at everybody. What a cruel professor. I've never seen anybody like that. That's crazy. A little cartoonish for sure, but yeah, kind of crazy. I also really like, though, that they are bringing back the MCU references because it seems like an Earth that's sort of adjacent to the MCU. We saw Doctor Strange. We're going to see Daredevil later on as well. I think Kingpin is going to show up as well. So the Sokovia Accords are being brought up, which is great. That's awesome. I also wonder because, in this universe, right, they're playing the Civil War moments in parallel. We see a little glimpse of the airport battle on a TV screen, which is interesting. I wonder if Tony ever looked for Spider-Man in this universe. I suppose not, because in this universe, the whole scene was mirrored by Norman Osborn. We get a whole little montage here of all the different suits that Norman Osborn is giving him. The medieval suit is kind of funny. And eventually he lands on the white Spider-Man suit, which, looks kind of like Iron Spider, but it's white. There's that. We are also spending some more time at school. I really like Lonnie and Pearl. Again, their chemistry, it's cute, and she has no idea what's going on. And it's really sad. We're also introduced to the Scorpions, the other gang, which is led by Matt Gargan, who I'm sure probably from Otto Octavius will get his Scorpion suit, but he's definitely going to play a big role in the rest of the series. I really like actually how, this series is taking full advantage of Spider-Man's rogues gallery because, I mean, Spider-Man, he has one of the most extensive rogues galleries in all of comic book history, and you got to take advantage of it, right? We've seen Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn, who are not villains yet, but I'm sure they will be. Scorpion, Tombstone, we see a version of Rhino, I think, in episode 5. And Dr. Octopus is in there. So we're and Dr. Connors, the lizard, who I don't think she's a lizard yet, but she will be, maybe. I don't know, maybe not. But yeah, I love that we're taking advantage of the full roster of characters that Spider-Man has at his disposal, which is really, really good. And also, what's interesting, speaking of other superheroes, is that Norman Osborn, kind of explains his motivation behind all of this. And he's like, or behind supporting Spider-Man, he's like, look, it's an arms race, right? Because you have the Avengers, right? But who's gonna, stop the Avengers if they go rogue? Like he said something like, we're one bad Hulk incident away from just being in terror. And he's got a point. I really like the MCU connections there. It's really good. And then at the end of the episode, Harry finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. So we head into episode 5, and Doc Ock, we get introduced to Doc Ock, the very comic book accurate Doc Ock with a little bowl cut on his head, which is interesting. And then we get some more scenes between Harry or Norman, who I'm still wondering if they're going to turn into Goblin. I guess Harry and Peter are becoming good friends here, and Harry, at least for now, is playing the role of the friend. He's the dude at the desk instead of Ned's guy in the chair, which I think is funny. Although I did miss Ned. I really like Ned and Peter. But we get a lot more development here with Lonnie as well. And we get the 2 parallel fights between Spider-Man and this Rhino. I think it's supposed to be Rhino, right? Some version of Rhino, and she's wearing the helmet. And then we get Lonnie and fighting the Scorpions. And those scenes in parallel, the action is really well, the action is animated pretty well, the fight scenes. Also, though, keep, making sure to ground the story and Peter's friends, Peter's relationships. I really like the ending where, you kind of think, oh, it's so sweet. Peter meets up with Nico, and then, of course, it's ruined because Peter Parker is a really well-meaning character in most iterations. Super well-meaning, really nice kid, but sometimes he's clueless. And inviting Harry Osborn, he means well, but he just didn't read the room. And poor Nico at the end of the episode. Poor Nico. So guys, episodes 3 through 5 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, I'm really enjoying the show. It's, even if I wasn't doing this for you, even if I wasn't reviewing these episodes or doing spoiler discussions for them on the YouTube channel, I'd still really be enjoying it. I think it's solid, and it's showing how expansive the universe of Spider-Man characters are, and it's really showcasing the best parts of Peter Parker as a character. His humanity, his genuineness, but his also overeagerness, and the quips are fun. The working with Norman Osborn is fun, and I think that this is a really solid show. So I'm excited. If this is what MCU animation can be, I'm down for it. Multiverse animation or whatever. Like somewhat of a parallel universe. Because honestly, like, if you're going to make shows like this, great. I think I heard it was renewed for 2 more seasons after this, which is great if the show is going to be this good. And why were we doing What If in the first place? I mean, again, that's just me. I really didn't like What If, but yeah, I'm really liking this show, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. So guys, what did you think of episodes 3 through 5 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? Are you enjoying the show, or maybe you're not? Let me know in the comments down below.